This is episode 45, how Rich Kahn built and scaled a company that protects over 2 million domains from ad fraud.
Hello, my name is Rich Kahn, CEO and co-founder of Anura.io. I'm currently in Middletown, Delaware, and this is my scale tell. It all started about 2003. My wife and I decided to start a company together. We were high school sweethearts, and somehow we decided let's really put our love on test and start up a company. And the best way to describe the company is a much scaled down version of a Google. Basically, advertisers can come and place text-based ads across hundreds of thousands of websites that we had access to across the internet. We launched the company in 2003. And late 2004, we started getting some complaints from advertisers that the traffic quality wasn't quite the same. They initially loved the quality of the traffic, and the traffic started to change. And they weren't quite sure what it was. So I'm the developer. I started looking at the code, looking at the analytics, trying to look at the data, and realized it was fraud. I had dealt with fraud earlier in my career, but I figured, okay, we're getting affected by fraud. So my goal was to run out, find a solution that does fraud detection, bolted onto my platform, and continued building my business. Unfortunately, back in 2004, 2005, nothing existed. So I wrote my own software. And I remember telling my wife, I don't want to be the guy solving fraud. I want to just continue building my ad network and growing it that way. And unfortunately, nothing existed. In fact, the first commercially available fraud detection solution didn't come out until 2008. So I was a little ahead of the time looking for that solution that didn't exist. And I started writing my own. And it worked great. Solved the problem that we were having. People were loving the product, and then our business started to grow. And over time, we started getting people asking, hey, can I license that product outside of your network? And I guess we were a little naive at the time. We thought, it would be kind of cool. Like, if you want this clean traffic, you got to buy it just from us. But we weren't looking at the bigger picture where people could license it for Google and the other networks that were out in the marketplace at the time. So we kept on doing that. And then we got to a point where we had won lots of awards. We were on the Inc. 5000 list 5 years in a row. I had won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Technology, Red Herring Award. Things were going crazy. We thought, you know what? Maybe we can sell the company. So we hired an M&A banker, did a full process, spoke to about a dozen companies that included Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Bing, and probably half a dozen other companies. And they all said the same thing. They don't care about the customer network that we had built. What they cared about was the fraud detection solution. And they asked us if it was standalone by itself, and do we have clients behind it? And I had to answer no for both of those. They all said the same thing.
Once you do, call us back.
And that was the end of the conversation. So kind of got a learning curve there that, okay, while we're making a lot of money and we're growing the business with this ad network, the real value seemed to be in the fraud detection solution. And at that time, we had a lot of people asking us to still license it outside the network. So two things we did. One was I figured I would jerry-rig the software to work outside of the network and work on a client's site for them because they were having a lot of problems. And I knew the guy in the industry for a bunch of years, and I figured, let me see if I can help him out, see if the software works outside of our network. And it was amazing. He had organic traffic only. And once we deployed the technology, we identified 30% of his traffic was fraud. It was eye-opening. We were able to mitigate the traffic for him, and it solved the problem that he was having. We were like, wow, this really worked well. So then we said, before we run out and build another platform, do we really bring something special to the marketplace? All these companies were asking, is it special? Can they license it outside the network? And people were willing to buy that type of company. Let's test it. So we had access to about 4 or 5 of our competitors at the time that did fraud detection, and we decided to run a campaign, spending our own money. We spent 6 figures of our own money running a test.
This test was the second thing that Rich and his wife did to determine if they, in fact, could build a viable fraud detection product that they could license.
We ran traffic from Google, Yahoo, and Bing through a page that would detect using us and the 4 or 5 other competitors that we had access to, all mark the traffic, and then we drop it down to a conversion page. Once the conversion took place, we would validate the conversions using human effort. So we'd call them up. Hey, you filled out a form trying to save money on car insurance. So whatever the campaign was, I can't remember the campaign was that we ran, but we try to confirm them that, yes, this person came to the site. Yes, this person filled out the form. Yes, this person wants more information. So we knew it was a legitimate conversion. So we human verified all the conversions. And then we went back and analyzed the data, and we blew the competition out of the water as far as accuracy, meaning identifying actual people were really fraud, like there was actual fraud, and thoroughness, we were finding more fraud. So I knew what that meant. It meant we had to go out and take a second mortgage on our house and go build another platform because we're bootstrappers. We're not used to getting funding and raising funding for our project. So I said, all right, let's focus on running the test one more time. I want to be certain. And the test came back. We ran it in a different way. And again, we outshined the competition. And I said one more time. So the team put together another series of reports. And each test took 3 months to run between building the campaigns, running the analytics, doing the verification, took about 3 months. So after the third run, I said, okay, fine, we're going to build this new platform.
And by April 1st, 2017, their new company, Anura, was born. Anura means frog, a fitting ode to their original company's mascot.
It was difficult because I'm like, okay, we got the platform launched. We got a basic website up. We got a pricing model that we think is going to work. Who's going to sell it? So that's me as a CEO of the company. It's my job to sell the product. I remember sitting in my basement for months, and I had probably a couple thousand contacts on LinkedIn. I hand emailed every single contact in my LinkedIn database. These are people that I met and had relationships with. It wasn't like the spam is today. Like I know on LinkedIn, you get a lot of spam, people just trying to get another connection so they can drop and sell you something. These were all handcrafted connections that I met at trade shows, people I spoke to. And I used to be very adamant about connecting with all these people. And as I connected with them, I started emailing them all one by one. Hey, I've got this new product. This is what it does. I'd love to talk to you about it. We landed our first 10 clients that way, which was enough to get it up off the ground and start running. And then I started joining different groups, going to different trade shows, starting to meet different people, started getting referrals, and that started to scale the business. And now we're at a point where this year, we identified last year that I think 40% of our new clients came from trade shows, 40% came from referrals, and the other 20% came from organic traffic. We wanted to step it up on each avenue. So this year we decided we always do it about 6 trade shows a year. The first 5 months of the year, I did 11 trade shows. And I got another 8 more to go this year. So we're focusing heavily on face-to-face communications. Organic traffic is still growing on its own, doing what we're supposed to be doing. And the referrals, as we're growing the user base, the referrals just keep coming in. And that's how we started scaling the company.
In case you're wondering, this is what scale looks like for Rich's company, Anura.
One of the statistics that we use is that we have over 2 million domains that we're protecting.
In a span of 14 years, the groundwork that eventually led to this scale included serious conversations with merger and acquisition, or M&A attorneys, extensive testing, and building a team. I asked Rich if he could provide more details about each of these areas.
2014 was the year that we hired an M&A firm and ran the full process that whole year, because those processes could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And at that time, we were somewhere between 40 and 50 employees as a company.
What continues to intrigue me in my interviews with different entrepreneurs and experts on the Scale Tales podcast is how many of them end up building their own software when they're unable to find an off-the-shelf solution. That might not sound interesting or novel, but it is when you consider that most of them either don't have a background in coding or development, or, as in Rich's case, they're self-taught.
I'll give you something that's not on my LinkedIn. So I wanted to be a robotics engineer back in 1990 when robots were cool in the movies, but the technology wasn't quite there to actually build robots the way we think about them today. I had gotten accepted to MIT for their electromechanical engineering program because you needed a degree in electrical engineering and mechanical engineering in order to be able to build robots. The problem was I got accepted to this program, which was awesome, but I didn't have the funds to go. And I didn't want it to be in debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And let me start off at a community college. Let me start there. Let me just bulk up on all the computer courses I get my hands on, get myself a good foundation, and then reapply to MIT for my last 2 years so I can get the balance of the education that way. And it turned out I was teaching the teachers better ways of programming in their own languages that they were teaching. I ended up walking out of a lot of classes because I was just that much more advanced than what they were in the languages. So I'm like, all right, well, I want to make good money. I want to build a family and take care of my family. And I started looking and doing some research. And because robotics was just so new, there wasn't a lot of job opportunities or a lot of money in the space. It was If you enjoy doing it, that's great, but there wasn't a whole lot of money in the space. So I said, let me flip my major, because I wasn't learning anything, to business management so I could take some business courses and figure out what I want to do when I get out of here. So I stayed in school for 2 years and I realized, you know what, this is not where I'm going to learn to do what I want to do.
By the time Rich made that decision, it was 1992, just as this thing called the internet came onto the scene.
I got on the internet and was enthralled with the internet and said, you know what, I'm not a writer, but I want to write a blog, or I should say a newsletter back then, on what's going on with the internet, because I was doing so much research and there was really no area to get information on the changing internet. Because the internet, when it first put out there in 91, 92, 93, it was all command line. There was no point and click interface. There was no browser, as you had to be techie to know how to log into systems, telnet to other systems to get information, download information through FTP. It was not user friendly at all. But I loved it because I was a developer, loved working on that kind of stuff. So in 1993, I launched a newsletter. And what I did was I trolled AOL news groups back in the day and just would bounce into a group and say, hey, by the way, I'm writing a newsletter on the changing things that are happening on the internet. If you're interested, here's an email address to send your email address to so I can add you to the list. And I want to say within the first 6 months, I had over 20,000 subscribers on that newsletter. For that back then, that was phenomenal.
Wow.
I started writing this newsletter. I would just, by my way of relaxing throughout the week, was learning anything to get my hands on. So I was looking at stuff on the internet that was coming out, more or less magazines, news articles, the newspaper, learning what's going on with the internet. Then I'd write an article for the week, send it out to my list. And then one day somebody emailed me and said,
can I advertise in your newsletter?
And that started the first internet company for me back in 93.
Wow. A company that you sold, right?
That one I didn't quite sell. So here's what happened. And that's the next part of the story. So what ended up happening was this started taking off and it was going great. But then in 1994, the web browser came out. It was a whole new thrill for me, because now you got this opportunity that the average person doesn't have to be a geekhead to jump online and be able to surf the web. Like there's this really cool tool that you can do. So I decided I want to build websites for people. I remember sending an email out to my base and said, if you're interested in getting on the internet, I can build a website for you, put you into a mall so you have some traffic, and do this all for $150. And it was like $50 a month to host your website. I received that week like $8,000 in checks. Took a week off from work, figured out how to build a mall, how to build the websites, built the whole thing, had the whole thing done in like 4 or 5 days. I don't think I slept that week. I was just so enthralled. This has some legs behind it. And what I did was, as it started growing, I thought, you know what? Why not add an ISP to the mix where people can dial into the internet? So I brought a T1 into my house. For most of you who don't know what a T1 is, the high-speed line. Back then, it was 1.5 megabits. Today, if you get 1.5 megabits on your cell phone, you're upset. I had this high-speed internet come in, bought racks of modems, and I ordered 300 phone lines for my house. So my neighbors must have thought I was crazy, because I called up Verizon. I said, I need 300 phone lines. 300 lines should be enough. Meanwhile, I had no intent of having 300 phone lines in the house, but that's how they sold what I needed in the house. So I remember they closed down our street for the day because they had to string this wire, which was probably about 2 inches thick, and it had 300 pair of lines on there in order to bring in the phone lines. They put it up on the poles. They had to restructure the poles. They put it into the house, and now I had phone lines in the house. Started selling dial-up customers. And long story short, I went to a presentation called Time Warner Roadrunner, which was the first cable modem that I came across. And it was so much faster than dial-up. And I'm like, our clients are with us because we're the fastest internet in town. We're going to lose all them to cable modems because everyone's going to switch to cable. No one's going to want dial-up. So that's when I was able to sell that company to another dial-up provider who still betting that people need a dial-up service for a long time. We got out and I was happy to get out.
And throughout it all, Rich and his wife are still together. And yes, they still work together too.
Yep. We've been dating since we're 15 and we never had a fight.
Wait, what? Really?
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Well, I tell everybody the same thing. It's either you grow together or you grow apart, because nothing stresses a marriage more than working together. Because normally if you work at different locations, you come home, how was your day? How was your day? But now you're working together, making decisions together, working on stuff. When you get home, you don't want to talk about each other's day because you just lived it. So you talk about other things. I've seen a lot of couples that have started businesses that have left the marriages. But for us, we grew together. We have 4 kids. We have 3 grandkids, and we just built a life together, and we built it. We built everything side by side together.
It's amazing what can be accomplished when people work together on one accord with a single mission and a laser-like focus. You can build strong businesses that can weather storms and sustain the setbacks and blows. But don't be fooled, my friend. It takes work. A lot of work. And it's a process. Rich will now share even more details about how he built his team. He even has a special offer for you.
The first person we hired was a salesperson. The second person, now this is interesting, the second person I hired was either 18 or 19, fresh out of high school, as a web developer. And believe it or not, he's still with us today.
That's incredible.
Now, there was a little hiatus. He was our CTO, and AWS called him up and offered him a boatload of money. And I told him that, look, if you're my own son, I'd tell you to take the job. I just can't compete. He went there and hated it. They didn't treat the people well. From what I understand, a lot of these big companies, what they do is they bring in fresh talent and they work them so hard that they burn out in 2 years. And then their payout structure drops after 2 years. They almost entice you to leave so they can bring in some people with fresh energy. So I guess that's the model for these big companies. And he was there for a couple of years and just was burnt out, wasn't happy with what he was doing, just miserable. And he called us up. He says, is there a spot for me? I'm like, we'll make one. I'm not going to pay Amazon dollars, but we'll make one work. And we ended up coming to a deal that made sense for both of us. And he now runs our office in Texas.
That explains how Rich hired a CTO, but it also made me wonder how he began to build a team back when he said he personally emailed over 2,000 people on LinkedIn. Did he really do that by himself, or did he have some people helping him? At what point did he start to build a team beyond his first 2 hires?
It took me a couple months to get through that list because I was writing a lot of people that if I didn't recognize a person, I would have kind of a standard email, but I would go back, to their LinkedIn. If I see something that connected us, hey, I think we worked together when you were at this company, I was at that company. I had to make them personalized. It took a couple months to get through that list. And then, of course, I started getting responses back that I had to respond to. So that whole process took a couple months, but it was 2017 when we first launched. We're like, great, we launched a product, we launched a company. Now we need to sell it. We didn't have a sales process built. We didn't have a demo built. We had nothing when we first started. We just had a product that worked. And now it's time to prove to the market. And they always say that first million is the hardest to make because in a SaaS business, that's your proof of concept. If you can't get past that first million, it's probably not a viable company. So it's like you're working your butt off to get to that first $1 million in business because that first $1 million of business represents proof of concept that not only did you build a product, but the marketplace likes it. Okay, now you get the first $1 million, let's grow to the next level.
It turned out that growing to the next level involved scaling down to scale up. Keep in mind that at this point, Rich had an existing company called Ezanga and a new startup called Anura.
So what happened was we kept on going to trade shows, doing everything, but that business model that was building that company was starting to wind down in general marketplace because you had other bigger players to go to. Now you had your Facebooks out, Instagram, Bing, Yahoo are bigger players now in that space of where you can buy traffic. So we were kind of like second tier search results. And that model started to die down a little bit. And as it died down, we realized, look, we're spending all this resources in marketing and selling, and we're not growing. We're not bringing on any new clients. So what we did was we took all the staff that we had because, it takes time to build the right. And at that point, staff had dwindled down a little bit as we started building out Anura. And we were left with like a core of like 12 or 15 people that we took from one company, moved it to another company. So we did what was probably not a smart idea. We took people from a company that was making money and put them into a company that wasn't making money. And I kept a skeleton crew running the Ezanga just because we had clients that were with us for 10, 15 years that loved our product and our service, and it was profitable. So we just kept it running for those people. And as the natural attrition came, eventually we shut down the business. because 100% of our focus was on Anura.
So eventually, Rich closed Ezanga, transitioned more of that team to Anura, and began to build the team even more as they poured more time, effort, and energy into this new business. As they continued with development, testing, and product launching, the need for more developers and project managers became apparent.
Essentially, we have a whole development cycle that we run typical Scrum, and we're building out the product. So for us, it's all hands on deck for new fraud alerts. In other words, if our systems kick up information that looks like there's a new fraud threat, which happens every week, goes to our developers' hands, they look at it, they figure out what the problem is, either retrain the machine learning or go out and solve the problem and then roll out an update to our product. Last year, $140 billion that was stolen by fraudsters from advertisers. People don't realize how big of a problem that is. Like, I'm a big, fan of Shark Tank. And someone will come up with this great idea and they're like, well, how big is the market? Oh, the market's like a $3 billion market and it's big. And I just want a small piece of that. Meanwhile, we're trying to protect $140 billion loss. Big industry, big problems. I mean, if I had to point my finger as to fraud, it's run by organized crime. They're putting together lots of good, smart people to go after people. So you're talking about a big problem that exists in the marketplace. So constantly testing the systems, constantly trying to identify new threats and new ways of getting around software like ours and many of our competitors in the space. We identify it and then we're able to do something about it. And we have updates going out every week. So we have a very robust development cycle to find the problem, fix the problem, test it, roll it out. While we're doing all that, we still have another group of people that have to work on new product updates, like new types of reporting mechanisms, new types of data to look at, new types of visualizations to use. So it's a constant iterative process, and the team is working on the data. I've got one guy who's got a new thing that he wants to work on. He's working day and night on it. Normally, we kick everybody out of the office at 5:00. He goes home, has dinner, sits down for another 4 or 5 hours to work on it, because these people are invested in solving this problem. It's almost as if someone's stealing money directly out of their own pocket, and it's great to see the team react in such a positive way to solve a crime, but it's not listed as a crime in any law, right? We all know it's stealing, but there's nothing verbally in the legal documents that call it out. We know it's theft. And now the beautiful thing is we sit down, we show a client, hey, this is where it's coming from. We help them mitigate. Also, they see a lift in ROI. Their clients are happy. They're making more money. And then, of course, we become part of their tech stack for life. And that's what we're looking for, is that those types of relationships.
As of 2025, the Anura team consists of anywhere between 25 to 30 people. Considering the daily operations of managing client accounts, working on new product development, and all the other things that a leader in this type of fast-paced environment has to juggle, I asked Rich, how do you do it? Having a team is important, yes. Having solid processes is also important too. But there's that third element of business infrastructure they also have in place: their tools and technologies. But it would all mean nothing without effective communication.
Our philosophy, we're big in-office people. We only have a few remotes based on needs of the business, but we're big in office. I love getting up and walking across the hall and having a conversation with my development team. I love going down and sitting down and celebrating a new client that we just got with the sales team. Like, then we have our marketing department, our support department. Like, I just like grabbing everybody and jumping into a room and face-to-face communications. It's kind of gotten lost after COVID. I'm a big fan of that. I hire first for the office, and then if I can't find the role locally after trying for several months, then I'll hire remote. But I'm a big fan of being in the office. There's just something lost with it when you're not in the office. But anyway, the tools we use to keep that all together is we use Slack for instant communication. We use Zoom for face-to-face conference calls. So you don't do anything by phone. Everything's 100% in person, like through a Zoom meeting. HubSpot for our CRM that keeps all of our data in one spot, so we can keep track of sales and contacts and leads and things like that. And we just signed up a new product that I've gotten good references from, called Tranual, because as you start to grow, you have all these processes and procedures that, as an owner, you have in your head, but your staff doesn't have it, right? So then when you're like, no, I changed that. We're going to do it this way. Well, nobody told the staff. So now what happens is you have one central place where Every time I do a training video, I have a place to stick it so that when we onboard somebody new, they can go through all the stuff that we put together. If I have an update to a travel policy, I can put out the travel policy, press a button, goes out to the entire staff, so they're required to read it and sign it that they've read it and understand it. So this way we're all on the same page, because I told them, as we double and triple and quadruple the company size, I don't want the wheels falling off. Triannual is supposed to be a really good tool for that kind of process. We have other technology that we use for different things, but those are probably the biggest components to keeping the team cohesive. We start at 8 o'clock. I kick everybody out at 5. So this way we can have a work-life balance. And we start the day with a morning meeting with our support team, our CSMs, our sales team. We all meet together in the conference room. We bridge in any of the remotes onto the big screen we have in the conference room. And we have a conversation every day. That's how we start our day.
Having these daily meetings is key to their success, making sure everyone is guided by the same compass and that no one veers off in the wrong direction. It's during one of these team meetings that a suggestion was made to develop the special offer that Rich has for you.
So our team looked around and we're trying to find new documents, because we have a lot of ebooks on our site, a lot of white papers, a lot of case studies. And we had this book, an ebook, it's probably 8 pages long, called Ad Fraud 101. And our team looked at it and said, it's kind of outdated. We really sat down. It took us 8 or 9 months to put this thing together. And they basically picked my brain, got a lot of information out of it, looked at the site, looked at some of the data that we put together. I want to say it's between 70 and 80 pages long, 10 chapters. So you don't have to read it cover to cover, but you might see a section on lead generation fraud or affiliate fraud that's important to you, and you want to read just that one section. There's standalone sections and everything else. You can go to our website, anura.io. We have a link to it right at the top of the page. You just click it. It's free. The guide, read it. Any questions, you can always talk to our staff. It's a great report. Give it out free, so people can learn about the space. And hopefully, when the time comes, if they need a fraud solution, we're the ones that they think of.
And the name of this free ebook is called The Ultimate Guide to Ad Fraud. You can access the link to it in this episode's show notes.
We call it ad fraud, but it's basically digital. Somebody comes to your site and they're fraudulent. Maybe they want to log into your ADP account. And if they can log into your ADP account, they can change where your weekly deposits or your ACH goes. That happens on a regular basis. We can stop that. We have a gaming company that we out of Germany called Gagen. And what ends up happening is people come in, they run a bot, it creates an account, the bot logs into the account, it plays the game up to a certain level, and then they take that username and password and they sell it on the black market for $20 an account, because people want to get past the basic levels and play at a different level. But meanwhile, it's an ad produced game. So all the advertisers that see this bot are complaining that there's fraud. We can stop that before they even open up the account. So we get into a lot more than just advertising fraud, but that's the type of fraud we get into. We don't get into other types of fraud. If you look up the word fraud, you'll find probably 100 different types of fraud that are out there. We focus on the digital fraud on the internet.